Okay, I think we should kick off. So thank you to the ACJ for having us hold this webinar. And I can't see anyone on the screen, but it's really nice to meet all the members who are joining us today. A big thank you to Joe and the team again for hosting us and giving us this platform to talk to everyone today. Firstly, I'm just going to introduce the panelists. So we have Alexandra Tosto, give us a wave, and Brian Hill, who are the GC&DC consultants. You will be seeing our friendly faces for the next, I would say in January, not for the next couple of weeks, but in January when you come in to hand in your entries. And we will be behind the scenes as well on emails answering your questions. So please drop us an email if you have any queries. And then I'd like to introduce you to our guest panelists. First, we have Peter Crump. Peter Crump is a trustee and council member of the GC&DC and was our brilliant chairman from 2018 to 2022. He's the founder and owner of and MD of Viper Designs, and a judge for the 2D and 3D craft and design sections. So thank you for your time today, Peter. And we also have Pamela. Pamela, hello, welcome. Pamela is GC&DC council member as well, and a former trustee. She has over 20 years experience in commercial jewellery design and is a senior designer at Continental UK. Pamela's been instrumental in guiding us specifically on the 2D design presentations in liaison with UK retailers, and is also an experienced judge in the competition. So thank you very much. Now we have...
just to add, Benita, that Peter is
yes.
also a sponsor in the competition as well, Viper Design sponsor.
Yes, for one of the 2D design briefs, a repurposed jewelry, which we will run through in a little while. Okay, so first we're going to I'll hand over to Alex actually to kick off on... Oh, wait, sorry. Once I get my presentation. Before that, I'll just run through what we're doing today, sorry. Okay, so quick run through on the webinar format today. We've just done the introductions. We're going to run through the key dates and competition structure. Then we'll move on to 2D design sections and have a discussion on what presentation would look like, what the briefs are up on offer this year. And then moving on to 3D design sections, the design and craft sections, and then we'll speak to Peter discuss with Peter as to what judges will be looking for in 3D. We'll then do an overview of the entry form, and we'll close with all your questions at the end. So moving on, I'll pass it over to Alex.
Hello, everyone. So we're gonna, the online entry form deadline is the 14th of January at midnight. We will not be able to accept anything anymore. The form line that Benita designed is very easy, the entry form. So just get on it, get familiar with it and get it in on time. From the 14th till the 16th of January, our lovely team will be at the Goldsmiths Centre in Farringdon, waiting for your beautiful work to be unpacked and categorized. And your pieces will be returned again from the Goldsmiths Centre in Farringdon on the 13th and 14th of March. Some pieces we might retain for particular exhibitions, but you'll be notified if that's the case as a winner and chosen for that. Thank you very much.
And I just want to note that we're not going back in time. It says 2024. But I should say 2025, everyone. So yeah, no time traveling.
And also, Benita, it will be the 13th of January for the online deadline, because 14th is one of the actual submission days, isn't it?
It is 14th, yes, because some people will still be submitting or have queries, so we give them an extra day. So that day is also an entry day. Okay. Alex, I'll let you continue. Yep.
With that, the award ceremony, which I wish each of you on this call will be at, is magnificent. It's held at the Goldsmiths Hall, and it's on the 3rd of March, and it's only by invitation. A selection of the award-winning work will be exhibited in the exhibition room at the Goldsmiths Hall from the 4th till the 7th of March, so the whole week after the award ceremony. The awards annual will be released after the event around April 2024.
Okay. And this is just the email address to contact us at, so take a quick snap of this if you don't already have it, but I will keep it on the screen later. All right, so a quick overview of our competition. We have two main sections in the competition. There is the 2D design presentation section, and this includes 8 design briefs, which are every year tailored for the competition. And then we have the 3D section for finished pieces. This is 3D finished works. And these are split into design, craft, and combined design and craft sections. So we're going to run through firstly the 2D design briefs. And we'll kick off with a quick overview of the 8 design briefs that we have. This is on our website, so you can click into these briefs. And I'll just read them out. So we have Make Your Mark, Platinum Jewellery, Repurposed Jewellery, which is sponsored by Viper Designs here today, Silversmiths, E-Waste Jewellery, Medal Design, Traceable Diamond Jewellery, and Conceptual Jewellery. Brian, would you like us to give us a run through of any of the key or new design briefs that you want to highlight this year?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just excitingly, that the 2 new entries, if you like, in the competition this year, which we, of course, we welcome, especially because they both have a sustainable, ethical hat on them, is e-waste jewellery from the Royal Mint. We're delighted that the Royal Mint have come back on board. So that's e-waste jewellery for their electronic, their recycling from electronic goods, which is one of the things they're doing with their jewellery. And also Tracer are for the first time coming into a 2D design section for traceable diamond jewellery. And if you read the brief on that, again, this is all to do with natural diamonds and fluorescence, trying to sort of promote some of the unique qualities of diamonds. So we are looking at natural diamonds here, traceable, and their footprint is about traceable, a digital platform for traceable diamonds from source to customer. So these are 2 new entries into the 2D design section. So not only do we welcome them, I think that should be quite appealing to our wonderful entrant community out there of creative designers that want to respond to the specific briefs which we all have in there. So out of those 8 design sections, just to point out that 6 of them have patrons sponsoring the awards. Peter, as we said earlier, Peter is sponsoring the repurposed jewellery. He's done that for a good few years. It's been very popular. We find that the specific briefs are worked out in liaison with the sponsor. That's why it probably takes a little bit longer to arrive at a finishing post with all of them. But they are all there for, and you can enter as many of those sections as you want to do as a creative designer. The only thing we would say is try to make sure that quality is uppermost on whatever you do, and don't try to sort of spread yourself too far with how much energy you want to put into those sections. But they're looking good, and we've got a high percentage of support from patrons within that. And Benita's just showing you the rundown of the requirements at the top there. Many of these sections have some lovely opportunities past the actual competition. So if you win, for instance, the e-waste jewellery, all the winners, if they decide, and remember our competition is not about a best in class, it's about does it hit our gold, silver and bronze standards. So a visit to the Royal Mint is that all the winners are going to be invited for a day's visit to Wales, to the Royal Mint, which will include a visit to the precious metal recovery plant. So this is a great opportunity, and you'll find that most of the design brief, Champagne-Gosset have got it again. The winner would be invited to visit Champagne-Gosset in Epernay in France, as previous winners have done. Platinum Guild International for platinum jewellery would, so right at the bottom there you'll see that with Gosset. Gosset are now in their 7th year with us. That's David Stonehouse there, who was our first winner actually 7 years ago for a Gosset trophy. So there's footage on the website for all this. So there's some really good things, but again, tying this in with what the competition is really pushing hard now is work experience, giving people the opportunity to connect with our sponsors and the industry in general. So it's really, really good, exciting, full of opportunities, and a lot of them have got things past the actual point of the competition and the awards ceremony.
Yes, thank you, Brian. That was a great summary, actually. and of the key highlights of the 2D sections. And also I'll run through quickly a few things on the 2D requirements. You can only enter your design, one particular design, into one section for 2D. So you just answer one brief and you submit one entry form, but that doesn't stop you from entering multiple entries or doing multiple design boards. You just need to do a separate entry form for this. Please ensure your name's on the reverse of the board. So as tempting as it is to put your logo or anything on the front of the board, for anonymity, to make sure judging is fair, please ensure names are at the back. And then we have requirements as to the size of the design board. So we've written that here. So you just have the drop-down list as to what the sizing for the sections are. It's just the silversmithing section, which is we allow larger boards and only one board, and all the other sections we allow one A3 board, but each section, click into it and we'll have all the details, for specific details as to the board sizes or the presentation size, page sizes.
We also stress, just scrolling up a bit more, Benita, we also stress that paper entries only are not acceptable, because we have real problems. If you win an award, you might have a cracking idea, great concept, a great answer to the brief, but if it's done on just a thin paper, it is not possible to present that on our boards, our display boards for the award ceremony. It looks really quite unprofessional. So if you see there, it says that it's not, paper entries only are not acceptable. So this is an unfortunate situation with the few. So we just highlight that time and again to make sure onboarding on foam board or mounting card as a professional presentation. And Pamela will focus in on this in a bit later as well.
Yes, I think, and they also get handled a lot, so we don't want them looking like crumpled up tissues, which they inevitably will, because they are seen and handled a lot during the competition. And just a quick heads up as well, additional sections to consider entering for the 2D presentations is the GEM-A award. This again is by application. It will be on the entry form. We just require a 200-word statement, and then you are entered into a separate part of the competition where you are eligible to win a course with GEM-A. An online course. Online course, apologies, online course. And then there's a 2D hand rendering award, which this year is sponsored by the Sheffield Assay Office. So if you do beautiful hand renders using gouache, watercolor, pencil, acrylic, anything that's using sort of hand materials or traditional paint materials, you are eligible for this award. So please make sure you write that on your entry form so that we can consider it, because sometimes some entries sometimes look a little bit like they're done by hand, but they're actually on Procreate. So we do require entrants to write what you have used or your methods of making.
And for that, just to reiterate what Benita's just said, for the 2D hand rendering award, it needs to be a complete presentation and communicate everything about your design so that it's all understandable, all there, and clear and crisp. And there's probably two good examples where you have the rendering, you have the technical drawing, and you have the description as well. So make it complete, a 360-degree circle. And those 2D hand rendering examples really, almost, if they're really good, will be guaranteed to be in a short list for the judging panel for that section to see where is the best hand rendering design in the competition, and does that come up to the standard we're looking for. So it's really a pointer. It has to be everything that is necessary on the design to communicate your idea, to inform people, and that could be taken through to the workshop to be started, production to start making from there.
I think that's a good segue to get Pamela involved into the chat. Yes. Perfect timing. Thank you, Pamela. I'm going to kick off with a question for you, Pamela. What does a typical judging session look like for 2D design sections?
Hello, everybody. Right. Generally, we arrive at the Goldsmiths Centre where all the judging takes place. When the judges arrive, all the entries for each category are laid out upside down, no, face up, sorry, with the names hidden to avoid unbiased judging. There is usually a chair, which is usually myself if I'm in the judging panel. We then guide each judge around the table to give them chance to review each entry. There's a debate and discussion amongst ourselves, or we just take our times to read take in every single entry to get the full idea of the entry. Judges are then required by the chair to come together to have a formal discussion and debate and decide on where we feel the short entries should be, the short list. Further debate is taken place. We then have a discussion on where we feel the gold, silver or bronze should be awarded, if at all. It's quite a ruthless exercise, to be fair, because each entry has to be to the GC&DC standard. And this is where the sort of nitty and gritty about it all really comes together. So a judging session can be full of bigger laughter, but it's a serious event. We have to be, we know that this is important for every single person that's entered. So we take it as seriously as we can.
And of course, right underneath that lot is that there is criteria, as you can see on the website, of all the design briefs, and the judges are reminded about that. They have had notice of that before they come to the judging session. So the brief comes with requirements, and you can see that on every 2D section, and that is if you like the Bible, and it's not about what has gone before. It's about what's on the table, and is it responding to the brief, and is it hitting the criteria points that the council have laid down in liaison with the sponsor, if there is a sponsor, and that's the way that the judging is conducted.
Pamela, what do you have any tips for entrants when they are approaching a design brief on how to answer it? I can share the screen if you like, going back to the presentation, or I'm happy to.
Yes, no, please. I think Brian covered this. There was another question that we were going to sort of cover, what judges look for. Again, reiterating what Brian said, we want to see that the entry has answered the brief fully and understood it, and demonstrated it in their presentation. And we look for a design that creates, or an entry that creates conversation. Is it an elevated design? Is it thought-provoking? Is the presentation and the entry considered? All of these sort of go into what makes a good entry. The presentation is paramount. And when answering a brief, we need to make sure that all of those criteria are covered. We want to make sure when you enter a brief, maybe write down all the key elements that are requested in the brief. And before you enter, have a tick list, make sure that's all ticked and all covered before you submit. No question is left unanswered in your entry, because if a judge is looking at your presentation and wondering why that bit isn't covered, although your idea and your concept may be amazing, you've not actually done what was asked. So you do need to make sure that you've got everything covered, and 100%, 110% that you've read and reread the brief, so you actually understand it off by heart, and that what you submit is exactly what you've been requested.
Yeah, and these are two good examples, one in hand rendering and one in using CAD. But if you want to see other examples, we have on the website, there's a good archive of our awards brochures, so you can see down the sections and down the years. It goes back to about 2009, I think, something like that. The examples of what the judges have judged as a gold, a silver, or bronze. So there's plenty of evidence of where designers have hit the mark at the various gold, silver, bronze levels.
Exactly.
And how about presentation standards? I'm looking at the two on the screen right now, and I mean, everyone has their own style of presentation, but is there anything, Pamela, that you would recommend, or any tips that you would give entrants to bear in mind when they are thinking about how to put all this information on, of course, like a very standardized, into a standardized frame size? Yes, over to you.
As Brian said earlier, presentation does have to be professional, and it is vital. If you spent hours, days, months with your concept, don't ruin it by putting in a presentation that's not neat, concise, tidy, clear. These two are brilliant ideas. You've obviously got one there that's CAD drawn, one hand rendered, both exceptional. You tell the story straight away. Even if you didn't have the blurb, you kind of know what's going on. But it doesn't make a judge not want to read it. It's engaging. There's not too much information there. It's not muddled. It is exactly as you would want to see. You know, there's obviously different ways of presenting. You find your way, but make sure that you're telling your story as concise and considered as possible. And kind of envision it on the page, on the display boards when you go to, you know, if you do go to the awards showcase after the event, if you can see it up there, you feel it's worthy, then you know that your presentation is of that standard. You know, have a visual of how you want to display your piece and aim for that. But don't ruin your entry by putting in something that's substandard.
If I could add, sorry, Brian, I was just going to say, if I could add to that, think about the scale of the presentation as well. If you make a really fine, detailed, beautiful little ring, for example, and that's how you present it, it's really difficult to understand for the judges. So always the example on the left is perfect because he's got actual size and then he's got a blow up of all the pieces, so the judges can clearly see what you have in mind for the design.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the perfect combination is a cracking concept, great answer to the brief, and beautifully presented. That really is number one.
It's the holy grail, really, of the presentation and the entry.
Yeah, absolutely.
I suppose I've heard a few judges say it's all in the edit, because of course you want to put everything into your board, and it's the process of what is the relevant information.
Well, selecting that's a good point, because you can put a whole menagerie on, and that actually isn't so helpful for judges because you can't see the wood from the tree, so to speak. So being selective of what you select is important. So make it stand out and be as clear and as distinct as possible, rather than post a lot of things on your A3 board, which are all meaningful, but actually it's a bit of a confusing mist of things. Or can be.
And how about things like spelling or
yes, please.
How important? Yeah, how important does this weigh in on these presentations?
For professional people coming along, for judges who are giving their time freely for us, and we have over 100 professional judges coming in from industry, it is somewhat a disappointment to see some poor spelling when we all know that the computer can help us to spell even if we're not that great at it. And you can get the old-fashioned dictionary out and have a look at that. I use that quite a lot, my Oxford Dictionary quite a lot, even after all my years. But please make sure everything is spelt correctly. It's just, it might sound a little thing, but it really does put some of the judges ajar a little bit as they read, and they think, oh dear, why didn't they make the effort to do that? So it's you know, it's a reality what's going on at the moment, but I think we need to really try to reduce that and eliminate it if we can, as possible.
And I had a question actually about optionality, because sometimes people want to show it in gold, in platinum, in rose, you know, or, you know, sub out a blue stone for a yellow stone, because I suppose some of the design entries, people want to give options. What would be your sort of take on that regarding showing different options or colorways or pathways?
I think if you can show that your design has many qualities in whatever combination of colors you want, you can do what you feel is the best as a presentation, as we're looking at the right hand one there as a hand rendering, and you can suggest other options within your description. So peridot, for instance, looks great with yellow gold. Some might argue that white gold looks just as good, but I think you'll find the majority of people say that yellow gold, especially 18 karat, is a really good and the best color combination for peridot stones. So I'd go for your number one option, but also show through your design, through your presentation, through your description, that you can this works on a number of fronts. But Pamela, do you want to?
No, I agree with you there, but I'm also wondering if don't confuse it too much. If you do have your key piece and it works well, really consider if you need to show all of those other options, because it could confuse, you could overcomplicate your presentation. You need to have a piece that focuses what you're trying to say. All those other elements would be wonderful. And I sometimes do it with my job. I kind of like every single permutation. But then, like on the CAD piece there, I always do a ring, but I always do a blown up version, because the buyers, they want to see it straight away. They make their decision on that first piece, and judging is very much similar. You know, you may go back and read it, but you've kind of got to be taken straight away. And so by having a focused piece on your presentation is really key. All those other bits, if you've got the space, then fine, but don't overcomplicate your entry.
And think about it this way, potential entrants, that the peridot jewelry section last year had almost 40 odd design entries on the tables in the exhibition room at the Goldsmiths Centre. If you had 39 of them with lots of confusion on them, it's not going to be so easy to find a winner within that. So I think Pamela's quite right. Shout out loud your great idea and don't clutter it up with other things, basically.
You've got to go and make the judges stop and look. And if you have too much on there, they won't be able to see the wood for the trees.
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. Were there any questions, Alex, from the crowd? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Alex is quiet.
Mic check.
I like you like that, Alex.
I am sure I made a few of you very happy with that. I don't have any questions for the 2D. The only question I had was for the 3D up to now.
Okay.
So we might get it on. I answered, but we might get into it with you better.
Okay. Any other points or tips, Pamela or Brian, before we move on to 3D?
I think that's enough for the moment, I would suggest, yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now we'll move on to 3D sections. Give me one moment. Okay, so the 3D finished work sections are split into design and craft. And I've just taken a screenshot of all the sections that are as they appear on our entry form, because I think this is the most easiest way to see what's on the table and what's on offer. To the left here, we have the design sections, and you can enter your work into one design section, any one piece into one design section. And we have silversmithing designs, small workers, enamelers, fine commercial, conceptual, precious, and ready to wear, or none of the above, especially if you didn't design the piece of work, but you just crafted it, then this is your section. But you can, of course, enter design and craft. You can enter your work into the same piece into up to 5 3D craft and combined sections. I'm not going to read out all of them. I think we'll be here forever. There are quite a few sections, and there is really something here for everyone. You can also, if you notice at the bottom, tick none of the above. If you designed the work but didn't craft it or fabricate it yourself, then you would tick just in the design section and click none of the above in the craft section. And then you can ask, well, we'll move on to this, but then this is a great way to involve the craftspeople who have helped you on your works. But we'll run into that in a bit more detail in
just to say, Benita, that all those craft and design many of those craft and design sections have sponsors behind them as well.
Yes, correct. And so I've just highlighted here that how somebody would potentially enter one of these sections. So you could enter small workers design, so that's one entry on this side, and then you can enter the same piece into silversmiths craft, handcrafted silverware, polishes, and mixed metals if your work is done by, if this work is done by yourself. And that's up to 5 in this section. Okay. Oh, right. Okay, now we move on to 3D craft. Ryan, would you like to give us an overview of sort of what the flavor of the 3D finish sections looks like this year, please?
Yeah. Well, I'll probably focus on, if I may, on many of the people looking today are familiar with the 3D sections, craft and design craft, but we've got 2 new ones in combined design and craft sections, which is by both actually sponsored by Louisa Guinness Gallery. The first one coming up now, mixed metals and patina, and Louisa is keen to help entrants, designer makers out there that not necessarily are working in precious metals and can use alternative metals. They can be in combination with precious metals, and she's wanting to see how you can explore and experiment with metals in any combinations and colors. But she also puts an emphasis, which is really good for us, for the competition ethos, is there's clearly a requirement to still make whatever you're doing, whatever you're exploring and experimenting with, to a good stroke high standard. So that's brand new. And the second one, this is the second year with which Louisa Guinness has sponsored what we call creative setting. Last year it was within the traditional setters section, and that worked okay. But this year we decided, in liaison with her, that we would pull that out of the traditional section, and it's a standalone one. So we are looking for people, setters, that can set work in a creative manner, whether it's a series of stones, and this example last year, you probably might not be able to see that on screen there, but there are 3 stones in each of those 2 rings, and it's quite a clever way that they were brought together and set. And Peter, I think you saw that, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, amazing, absolutely
amazing.
Just give us a quick rundown on that, Peter.
That was just completely unexpected. As Pamela said, we take an overview to start with, and then you slowly focus into the piece. And then all of a sudden it pops out that this is something actually quite amazing, not seen it before. Absolutely everything we can ask for as judges to see in the competition.
So as a first time out last year, that was a good start for trying to help all these skilled setters out there, and there's plenty of you out there that are wanting to do setting in a slightly different way that might catch Louisa Guinness's and the panel's attention for creative setting. So those 2 are if you like, brand new into the 3D design and craft sections. What I would suggest also, while we're on this section, Benita, is just drawing attention to thinking about Association for Contemporary Jewelry, is that wire innovation is in this area, there it is, wire innovation. That is, and Peter's been a judge on this for a good number of years. It is a cracking section, this one. And it never fails. I would say it's almost one of the most popular categories in the competition in the 12 odd years that it's been in with us, with the wire drawers, the Worship Company wire, gold and silver wire drawers. And every year it can be a piece of small work, it can be a piece of silversmithing it has to start life as wire, and it cannot be cast, it has to be hand done. And we've had some, Peter, I'm talking too much, but we've had some terrific, haven't we? We've had some terrific art.
Yeah. This piece, Anna Gordon, was an absolute mastercraft. Masterclass in making, construction, soldering, plating. It's just absolutely wonderful. It was a delight. The more we looked at it, the more we went into it. It's like, wow.
Back and front, wasn't it? Back and front. Back and front.
Back and front. I'm going to say it's pretty well flawless.
That's wires, you probably know this, that's wires milled down and then swaged and carefully, obviously, filed up and brought together by hand. So it's definitely hand. There's no casting, no reproduction requirement within this section. and the wire innovation perhaps would appeal to a number of ACJ members in the competition. The other one within this, Benita, is horn and polymers. And I just want to draw attention to the fact that this is 3 years old now with us, with the Workshop Company of Horners, and we've moved a little bit sideways with more flexibility. And if you read there, it does say that there's just as much emphasis and importance on plastics within your jewel as there is with horn. Horn is obviously a traditional material, it's a byproduct, etc. But I'm thinking of conceptual jewelry, I'm thinking of horn and polymers here, where you can use, and we've had many cracking examples of conceptual jewelry designs in the conceptual jewelry section, but I can't see any reason why it can't also manifest itself within the horn and polymers section as well.
And on the horn and polymer section, you can request a piece of natural horn to experiment with. Mark Lewis's email address is here if you wish to do so, which is where this piece originated from. Janet contacted Mark and got a piece of horn to experiment with, and won herself the Worshipful Company of Horners Award. So a great first outing. Alex, was there a question?
Yes, there was a question, and I wanted to do it now because we're talking about these categories. About the creative setting category, they're asking if what is set needs to be a precious gemstone, or if they could add anything.
Absolutely. It's the technique, it's the style, and it's what you've achieved, whether it's paste, whether it's glass, whether it's diamond, sapphire, opal, it doesn't matter. It's the actual process of what you've done with the stone and how clever you've been and inventive you've become in exploring, and how you can make stones look beautiful in a different way, not in a conventional thread and way or pave way. We recognize that's catered for in the traditional craft section of setters. So this is different and new, and it doesn't matter what the stone is or what the metal is that you use.
Thank you. Great answer, I think.
Okay, over to Peter, I suppose.
Have a go, please, people. Have a go, I'd say. Have a go.
Okay, so my this is going to sound like a well-worn record. My first piece of advice always is that old mantra of measure twice, mark once. It's read the brief again, and probably read the brief a third time, so you really get under the skin of it. When we judge, and we haven't really spoken much about the judges, there are generally about 3 judges, depending on who sponsored the section, but there will be a council member and there will be 2 judges. And pretty much all of the judges are specialists in the subject that they're judging. That's a crucial part of the competition. And I'll be blunt, we're tough. And there's nothing more heartbreaking than realizing that somebody has missed the brief and they're not eligible. And whatever we think of it, we'll try and fit it in somewhere else. You know, that Brian and Benita will know we spend ages running around and saying, can we slide this in there because it's relevant to that part? But for the most part, if it's not right, it's out. This is a professional competition, and we're looking for the best of the best. So I'll say it again, read the brief, get it right. Okay. So in terms of the judging, Pamela said we enter the room, all the work's been laid out. It's absolutely mind-blowing to see a long table full of work in that one discipline. The judges will take a free-form look and just get under the skin of what we're going to be looking at. And then we just narrow it down and narrow it down. And the same happens with the specific pieces. We might get to, it doesn't matter what the section is, whether it's a teapot or it's an elegant ring that's in for setting. We'll start with an overview. Does it fit the criteria? And then you start to hone in And if it's craft skills, this is where we start looking at, is it made correctly? And it's all the things that you understand. It's the solder seams. Are the file marks in it? Has it been taken to the final point that you can say, this is special? And if it's special, then you stand a chance of it being of the right level. If it's not, then really, I'm going to sound awful, but don't put it in, because you're up against the best. If it's 2D design, then it's different, because we're looking at the design prospect of the piece. Can't help but be influenced by how well it's made, but we really are judging it on its design qualities. But in 3D craft, we're looking at the craft.
I'll just add, Peter, as well, that as all this scrutiny goes on over 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks of judging sessions, it's true to say there are some years, probably most, where we might not award anything in a section, or certainly on a gold or a silver. But there are other examples, and this is the positive hat on, where we award more than 1 gold, and because the work hits that standard, and you cannot deny anybody, because you've already got 1 gold on the table that's an outright gold. You can't deny somebody else's piece of work that's also hitting that standard. So in fact, this sounds probably wrong and a bit skewed, but I think we've had 3 or 4 golds in 1 section in the past.
So if I sounded overly tough, I have to tell you that last year we gave 2 golds in the Viper and we gave 2 silvers. So obviously the community responded to the brief and got it right. So we were really, really happy. Yeah. It does happen.
Good. Anything else about the craft sections, Peter?
I have a question on the emphasis on submitting information about your entry, because the entry form has loads of placeholders for you guys to write as much as you wish. And sometimes, unfortunately, we get people who don't write much about their work. Peter, do you want to weigh in?
I would say, especially where we're looking at innovation or something like, there's nothing the judges like better than, oh, I haven't seen one of those before, or wow, how have they done that? And it's a real shame if it stops there. If on the back of the page that when this isn't us looking for your secret invention or whatever it is, this is us trying to understand what you've done. And clearly on the back, we won't read it, the judges, Brian or Benita or Alex will read out what you have said about the piece. And if you've developed a technique or you've used a technique, then explain it, because that helps us understand the piece better. Brian, you'll remember about 5 years ago, the guy that did the pressed fold.
He did a bowl that all the judges, including Peter, could not work out how.
No, go back the first year. He did that strange thing that was like a finger. It looked like a piece of armor.
Right, it was
and it had been made out of just 1 piece of silver, and we couldn't understand how he'd done it without any soldering. So we found out. He told us. We awarded him. It wasn't worthy of a gold, but it was very special. He got a silver. The following year, he came back with a bowl. I mean, what a story. He came back with a bowl, and it just knocked us all for 6. Because
that's press formed. And this is where the judges, so this was in a technology section, nothing technological about this in terms of high-tech machinery, CAD or anything. It's done by fly press, press forming, and it's beautifully done. It's a big fruit bowl, and it blew the socks off all the judges, Peter included. So and the explanation within that would have been in the form. I would just like to add to what Peter said, is help us to help you, basically, with your what you write. if you can help us if your pieces are in consideration, let's say in a shortlist, but they want to know a little bit more about your piece, please put down in the placeholders on an application form as much information about what you've been doing as possible. That could make the difference between one award or another, or no award or an award. So really important, underline, help all the judges to help you understand as much as possible about your work, your piece, your passion, etc. And that is as far as you can go. If you don't write it, that's not a disaster, but obviously it just can't. Maybe it isn't taken that much further because of lack of information.
And I think also the more you write, the more it gives you an opportunity to be considered for other awards as well, which awards that you cannot enter yourself into. But if judges find something innovative about your work, an innovative use of techniques or tools, then they're able to put you forward for, say, Creative Innovation Award. So there are other things on the table that you necessarily can't enter, but that judges can put your work forward for. And again, the more, as Peter and Brian have emphasized, the more information you give them, the more wowed they can be if they find.
And you can't write masses because the placeholders don't. So it's important to not waffle, but to be specific. But just give us everything you've got, basically. I'm
just conscious of time. I've got a question for Peter on multiple craftspeople, actually. Because this previous slide, if you had designed a piece but you hadn't made it, or you've only done part of the making and somebody else has contributed to it, can you touch on maybe how we would honor this, or how judges would look at a piece of work?
So honesty is the best policy to start with. Don't claim it if you didn't do it. In actual fact, celebrate the fact that you did a collaboration with somebody, because they might get an award. So if you've made a piece, it doesn't matter what it is, and somebody else sets it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
We had a cracking example last year with Marco and the designer. I can't remember her name. Was it Charlotte?
Charlotte.
Was it?
Charlotte and Marco, yes.
Charlotte and Marco. She was the designer and he was the maker. It actually won quite a number of awards, and Charlotte got an award in a 3D design section. I can't remember. Can you remember, Alex, what section that was?
I'm not sure if it was precious. No, I would say something silly, but it was a design set.
So it's a perfect answer to that question, because that was a team effort between designer. They work for the same company. You don't have to work for the same company. You can be self-employed, of course. And he got quite a number of credits in the various categories that his handmade palladium. Remind me, you saw it. Remember it, Peter?
Yeah.
Piece, beautifully made.
In fine jewelry, because he won a lot.
Okay.
They won a lot of craft and the design.
Gotcha.
That one.
Key thing here is that if you are the designer, so Charlotte as an example, Charlotte would have just entered her work into the, say, fine commercial jewelry section, and that's her entry form. At the bottom of the entry form, Charlotte would have written who contributed to it, and would have asked that craftsperson to also submit their own entry form. So Marco would have done his own entry form and ticked none of the above in the design section, so nothing here, because that's Charlotte's gig. And then on the right-hand side, Marco would have gone to town and written everything that Marco has done for the piece. So I think Marco had done everything from polishing to engraving to wire work, laser technology, and setting, etc., etc. So that's the place for the craftsperson to shine. So I think that's an important consideration to make, especially if you have a piece of jewelry and you didn't set it. Ask your setter to enter with the same piece.
So this is how so much of our industry works anyway, and we really want to recognise it. So it's not about just you being best in class and getting all the ticks and badges. It's recognising that we are a fragmented industry, and let's celebrate any and everybody that's involved in it.
Yeah, I think just again adding to that is that the many unsung heroes in our industry, and the competition helps to celebrate those. So if a piece collectively has been made, and this has happened many times in the competition, by a number of people, then whoever the owner of that piece is, who started life with it, then we would encourage them to help the setter, the enameler, the engraver, to enter the competition of that piece for their work on that piece. But as Benita said, you enter that with the owner's permission as a separate online application form for yourself. So let's celebrate all these wonderful people. Great work on a piece that has been done individually. The collective together looks amazing, and there is a home for all of those people exercising their specialisms, basically.
I'm just conscious of the time. I'll come to questions in a moment. I'll just finish off the presentation part, and then I've got a few more coming up. One moment, guys. Give me a second. Let's go
Peter,
back.
we're talking too much.
Never too much, all relevant.
As usual, Brian.
Thank you, Peter. We'll come back because we've got a few more crafts questions coming up. So before we touch upon them, I just want to touch upon the entry form. So the portal to your entry or submitting your work to the competition. Again, just to remind you, 14th of Jan is the entry deadline. And you must complete one before you come to the centre with your work or you post it off. We need a unique ID number, which is allocated to your work, which once you finish your entry form, you'll be issued with one. It'll come through to your email address. Please check your spam. And if you haven't received anything, then email us ASAP to make sure you have this number. That number should go with your piece if you're posting it in, and all your details in the post package. The post doesn't have to be anonymous, I just want to say. When we open your parcel and we see a beautiful bowl, please put in some information as to who it's from and where it's from, because you'll be surprised we've received entries with no return address because you stuck to the anonymous part of the requirements too strong. But yes, just a little slip of paper with your name, address, contact information in case we have to call you, and your unique ID number so we can match your piece up with your entry form. And I'm going to give you a very quick, really quick whiz through of our entry form if my fingers are fast enough. Here we go. So this is the entry form. There's a little reminder at the top of key dates. And just so you know, those who are posting work in, there is a fee to post work back to you. So please double check the fee under our FAQ section. They're usually £15 for 2D work and £35 for 3D work, because there is a lot of administration and packaging that we have to do to ensure it's returned safely. The entry form, there's two key requirements to enter the competition. One is that the entry must be designed and or made in the UK. So I'm afraid if the work has been designed or made outside of the UK, it does not qualify for this competition. And the entry must have been made, completed within 12 months of January 2025. So within the last year of entering. This form is fairly straightforward. We do ask questions as to your sort of current status, apprentice, student, or graduate, which then allows us to classify you as either a junior or a senior. If you get classified as a junior, we allow juniors to opt to be classified as a senior, because you may be an experienced professional in education and not wish to be classed as a junior. So again, you'll be given that option in the form. You then, like you've seen before, you can choose which sections to enter, click away, and then these lovely little placeholders to write to your heart's content within a certain number of words, though, please. We ask a small image upload, and this is not going to be judged. This is for myself, Alex, Brian, and Kat to be able to identify and match your work to the entry form quickly. So even if your work isn't complete, work in progress shot is absolutely fine, but just a little screenshot thumbnail for us to identify work by. And as you can see, here are the pieces that Peter was speaking about, design, concept, etc. And that's a wrap on that front. So give me one moment.
And it's live now, Benita, isn't it?
And it's live now, yes. And now the moment you've been waiting for, Alex. Over to you.
I only ask for the community.
Yes.
All right, so an anonymous attendee asks, for the wire category, can the piece incorporate other materials besides wire, or must it be composted? completely of wire, basically.
It would need to be,
Absolutely.
it would need to have a large wire content, but no, it could include anything else.
You can do what you like as long as the majority stakeholder shows that you've been wire innovating.
Perfect. And then we have another question that asks, Vanita, hold yourself.
Yes.
Tell us more about the 2D design conceptual jewelry brief, please. As this might be a popular one for ACJ members, in particular, some more details on the clumsy chic theme and how we might approach it. I'm sorry we laughed because we laughed a lot with Vanita. We created together and this.
Yes, so I'm going to share the 2D conceptual jewelry brief. We had a great time designing this brief. It's called Clumsy Chic, style born from blunders. So we're looking at awkward moments such as tripping on sidewalks or walking into glass doors, but turning these celebrating these clumsy moments and challenging entrants to turn these into creative or stylish accessories. With the conceptual jewelry brief, there is no requirement for these pieces to actually be made up. Remember, this is a 2D design brief. And I think it was John Moore who once said, let your imagination run wild with this, test the limits of your imagination. You can design something that is, can never be fabricated. It can be made from a neural, neural coating or something like that someone had designed.
It's running with the imagination.
A mithril from Lord of the Rings, some sort of fantasy metal that doesn't exist. So this section is really to test. It's about designing conceptual piece of jewelry that can, of course, be made up. So if you want to create something that has a life in has a sort of presence in reality, that is also absolutely fine, but it also allows entrants to push the bounds of their imagination. We think also about how like movie jewelry for movies, jewelry for gaming. So this is a section which allows a bit of the sort of real world jewelry and conceptual jewelry to sort of sit in the same room together.
Basically, freedom to anything that connects to this brief.
It says, submit designs that not only spark a smile, but also create a sense of connection through shared experiences. After all, we've all been there. So touch on the empathy of clumsy moments that we all feel. And just to give you an idea, like this is a piece that was submitted by Christine Milroy, Matanuska neural stem plant. That's what I was trying to describe, guys. And they won a silver award in 2021. There is also a nice video here. So entrants who are specifically looking at this brief, please check out John Moore's video that we did Q&A session with him on this.
As Peter said earlier on in the webinar, read, understand. There's plenty of flexibility and opportunity to be really inventive, creative, innovative, all those things with any materials. Conceptual jewelry is an open book, basically. To do what you like. Obviously, make sure that it has a correlation to what we've asked for through the brief. And it's answering that aspect really well. And I mean, one of the things that when you get a cracking design coming in, a lot of people say, oh, that's nice. Why didn't I think of that? It's a good reaction, and you've hit the mark if you've done that. And as I said earlier, or we said earlier, if you've got a super concept, a great idea, and you can communicate that really well through your 2D presentation, then you're in business for attention for the judges.
I think, Alex, any more questions?
I have no questions.
We're clean. Good.
Oh, hi.
Well, we've hit 2 on the dot. So I guess I just want to thank Peter and Pamela firstly for your time today, and Brian as well. And of course the Association of Contemporary Jewellery. Thank you for this platform to speak to the members, and we're really looking forward to receiving your entries. Spread
the good word to all your members, all your 600 members. Let's have a mass entry from the ACJ this year. Make it the year.
Make it count.
Make it count, yes. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time, and enjoy your lunch break. Sorry we've taken up most of it.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.